Good afternoon, Jason. How are you today?
Hey, Chris. Doing well.
Welcome to Leading is Serving.
Hey, glad to be here.
Yeah, I'm super excited. It's been a great week. I've talked to a lot of great business owners this week.
Yeah?
Yeah, it is just super exciting and thrilling.
Dude, it's cool to see you so excited.
To talk
like this.
to people about their business and how much impact they're making.
Right.
And it's just super, that's just really, that's what I love doing this podcast is just because like these tools are really helping people, which is super exciting.
Yeah.
And whether people realize it or not, like, yes, we put names on some of these tools, but some of these people are using these tools and they just don't even know it.
Right.
Or we're giving them the information in our personal conversations. Hey, you should probably do this.
Yeah.
And then it's just like, it's exciting to see them take off with it.
Right.
So anyways, sorry.
Well, welcome to the podcast, y'all. Leading and serving is the desire to fight for the highest good of others. And
sure is.
That's what we're about. Not just making income in our businesses and in our work, but making impact in our community. How can we fight for our community, for our families, for our friends, our neighborhoods, everything, everybody involved. And so that's our heart. And we've got a couple opportunities that are out there right now. I mean, first off, we're looking for some leaders here in the community to interview. So hop over to the website, leadingisserving.com, and you can nominate a leader to, if you think somebody's doing an amazing job at bringing impact to the community through their work and through what they do, nominate them. Let them know. Let us know. We'd love to start that conversation and see if they'd be willing to be on the podcast. Yeah. And the other opportunity is, we've been talking about all these groups.
We have.
About peer-to-peer mentoring groups and masterminds, all these things, and the value of that relational iron sharpens iron kind of moment, right? We've got openings for new groups. We've had people reaching out to us and saying, hey, I want to be a part of that. Yes. And we've got about half of a group ready to go. Yep. We got room for a couple more. And so we're starting something up through the Uncommons coming up pretty soon about a business network and how you can get involved in these groups. So let us know if you're interested. We would love to tell you more about that, and we will let you know more details in the next couple of weeks.
As we iron these out, we're super excited about the details that are coming together about those groups and the things that are going on with the planning of all that.
Right. And honestly, I'm actually thinking that we're recording this far enough ahead that there might be additional details that will be live by the time this airs.
Oh, that's true.
So we'll have to figure that out.
Add that back.
The magic of recording.
Right.
So, but today we wanted to talk about us and about you, about us collectively, right?
Correct.
We joke a lot about dumpster fires.
We do.
And how often there's a fire that we have to go put out, right?
This is so true. And we've talked to so many other business owners that especially here lately, there's a lot of dumpster fires, what we would classify as a dumpster fire. And so what do you mean by a dumpster fire? Let's just verify what that means.
Even if you want to take it as simple as that moment in Forrest Gump where he's running across the country, right?
Right.
And, the guy gets covered in mud or whatever, and he says a bad word, right? Yeah. It's a word we're not supposed to say, right? Right. Yeah.
It's a bad word at our house anyway.
Yeah. And he looks at Forrest Gump and he goes, "It happens," right? And so now a saying, they're joking about how that saying came about, right?
Right.
So that's kind of a dumpster fire to me. Like I was just talking to a leader that supposed to cross paths with, and it was like, something just changed in my business. I have no control over it.
Yeah.
And receiving a delivery, and I just got to go do it.
Right.
I'm like, okay. And business, life happens. Business happens.
Right.
Those are some of the dumpster fires, whether they're small or, then there's some big ones.
Right. Well, and everybody's at a different level, right? So if you're a solopreneur, maybe a dumpster fire looks like, you have to show up for the delivery that Amazon's going to deliver,
right.
Or, and you have to implement that right away because you've been waiting on it. I know we, at one point, we had waited 3 months for a piece of material that was held up a huge job for us.
Right.
So, it wasn't really the dumpster fire that I would think that you're talking about, but it was when it came in. We had to shift our day to try to get that done so we could get that finished.
A lot of us like moving up, whether it's moving up the ladder in our jobs. You know, we achieve a certain level of leadership so that we can be in more control of what we get to do, right?
Right.
Or some of us just jump in the entrepreneurial truck and we go to town thinking, I'm going to start my own business so that I can be in control.
Right.
And then the dumpster fires happen and you realize
You're not.
you're not in control.
No.
Something else that controls you. You're almost a slave to your business in a sense.
Right. Which, I mean, let's talk about that. Let's break that down a little bit, because there's many times where, yeah, you walk out of a job where you're at a W-2 where your boss is your immediate person that you have to make them happy with as far as what the accountability process is. And then there's so many people that walk out of their business or walk out of their job. It's a W-2 situation. And then they have to have customers. And so now they have customers that they're accountable to. Instead of one person, now they have 2 to 200 in a year, right? So it comes and goes. There's an ebb and flow with that. So I think what I would like to touch on today is, like, I think that these dumpster fires are twofold. I think there's some things that are actually out of our control, right?
Right.
There's circumstances of the situation, and just is what it is, right?
Right.
And so you can hone that in as much as possible. But then there's the things that you can control. There is the ability to plan for knowing something's coming. There's the ability to plan for meetings accordingly. Like, you know, so it's like, so I don't have to cancel a meeting with the customers, because I know there's a good chance that this part's going to come in during that timeline or during that day. So it's better for me to schedule that stuff for tomorrow.
Right.
You know what I mean? So, and that's what I have found, is that instead of trying to make it all happen in one day, if I stretch it out a little bit, sometimes my time is not as efficient. But what I also can find out is, or what I've also found out is that if I do that, I can use that time in between things to work on an estimate or spend time and get my efficiency back without having to run around with my hair on fire.
Right.
And go ahead.
I mean, what you're talking about, you're mentioning the tool controlling the controllables. Right. That there are things that we absolutely have no control, no influence over, and they just happen.
Right.
You can't shift it. It just is. Right.
Right.
There's things that you have influence over.
Yep.
For example, you know, if you and I want to go grab lunch, I can't control your schedule.
Right.
But I can influence when we go to that. Right. And then there's things that you solely control. And what I think also happens is that we end up in this state of feeling like we're controlled by the situation.
Right.
When in essence, we're reaping exactly what we sowed.
Right.
You know, we've set up a system or an expectation that we now have to fulfill, and it's taxing. It's exhausting. It's controlling us, rather. Right.
Right. And so one thing I want to comment about that, because I think that some of the business owners, and truly, let's go to me. When I first started my business, at some level, I thought that's what was supposed to happen. I kind of thought at some level, like, if I wasn't putting out some fires and I wasn't taking care of those customers immediately, that they would go away, or that I wasn't busy enough, or that I didn't really have a business that I needed to have that tied connection to.
Right.
Right. Now, I am very much tied to my business, and at some level, you know, probably too much. And I'm working through that.
Right.
But when I first started it, and when, you know, Scott and I were working side by side, there was many a days where I was doing more than I should have and couldn't do anything different because I didn't know any different. You know what I mean? And as I grew, then I recognized the controllables and the uncontrollables.
Right.
And was able to curtail my life a little bit differently. And I think that's what, you know, for some of the business owners I know, I think for me, the shift then became, so this is how you work on your business, not just in your business. Because I've heard multiple people that are talking about, hey, this is how you scale. This is how you have a better outcome for you.
Right.
And so in order to do that, you have to lead yourself. And in the process, you have to be able to work on your business, not just in your business. Right. I mean, as an early entrepreneur who was running solo or me, Scott, and running in tandem with Scott and I was like, I can't get there. I don't have any more time left in the day.
Right.
Right. So it's like, so then it became a whole lot of understanding of what's controllable, what's not controllable, and then shifting accordingly.
Right. I think I'm probably going to say something pretty unpopular, and maybe this will get us our first 1-star rating. We'll see. I don't know.
Don't do that.
But I think we are. I think we feel like the only result is up and to the right on the line graph, right? As time progresses, you're moving up, right? Because that's just a part of the whole entrepreneurial American dream, kind of right. Is up and to the right as fast as somebody else,
right?
Which goes back to our last episode about comparing ourselves to others, right?
Right.
Okay, but if the faster the growth, there's trade-offs to that in our lives, right?
There is.
And so a lot of times we're like, but I did not hit $500,000 in my first year, or I didn't hit $3 million in my first 10 years. Whatever that benchmark is of up and to the right. Sometimes we put expectations on growth, and because that's just what everybody does in America. That's just who we are. And so we set up these expectations that we feel like we have to live up to, and so we create all of these situations and expectations that feel like they fit in the uncontrollable category.
Right.
Like if I'm going to hit $500,000 this year, I gotta do X, Y, and Z, and now I'm working 80 hours a week.
Right.
And I might hit my goal, but I hate my job. I hate my business. I don't want to do this anymore.
Now you've taken your business to where you thought you wanted to be, to a place you didn't want to be.
Right. So that's my unpopular thought. Is incremental growth okay?
Yeah. I mean,
versus exponential growth.
Right. I think everybody needs to wrestle with that.
Because there is a trade-off in that.
Right. It's exactly right.
I mean, one of the businesses that I've started, I'm like 10 hours a week and no more.
Yep.
I put guardrails around that.
Right.
And it can't grow any faster than 10 hours a week.
Yeah. And I mean, I know, like, I listen to Dan Miller and he talks about side hustles.
Yeah.
And he says, you can have a side hustle at 10 hours a week.
Right.
So put guardrails around your job. Like your job, it might need guardrails so that you can do your side hustle. And that's healthy. It doesn't necessarily, your day job doesn't necessarily need to suck 100 hours out of your week. Like sometimes that's unhealthy. Sometimes that's healthy depending on where you want to be. Like, and this is the best part about these conversations, I think, for people is that you get to determine what's healthy and what's not for you.
Right.
You get to determine whether up and higher to the right is the answer. Is the, I look at some of these contracting business, going back to the comparison things, like, and some of these people are doing $25 million a year. I just read it. I mean, I think Facebook has tweaked its situation to now I get those as ads, right?
Right.
It's like, if you want your business to be $25 million a year, you need to click on this. Like, you know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
So, and I just don't know that I want that. I don't know if I don't know that, for one, I don't have enough processes in place to be able to handle that much business.
Right.
So, and then early on in my coach was like, hey, where do you want this to go? Like, going from $2 to $150 in a short amount of time, or $1 million to $25 million in a year, that's going to take a lot of growth and a lot of people, because you can't just do that overnight with the same crew.
Right. And I think it's easy for us to look at our business, regardless of what level we're at, and we think we want to grow. And no, we're not saying don't grow.
Right, for sure.
But how much growth is appropriate for you and your business, right? And so we hear the stories, of people who overnight success, right?
Right.
But the podcasts, the movies, the shows, they don't necessarily tell about the whole story. You hear the successful part, or you hear, you don't hear that, well, I built the foundation of a multi-million-dollar business.
Yeah.
For 2 years, and then we went gangbusters in year 3.
Right.
But that all happened when I was single, or that happened before I had kids, or and so
the priorities shifted.
Right. You had a different bandwidth, you had different guardrails, right? And so what what we're saying in this is take an inventory.
Yep.
Gain that self-awareness
Right.
of looking at the guardrails in our lives, because that's what we feel enslaved to,
Mm-hmm.
right? That we feel enslaved because they're guardrails that I have to show up in, and if I don't, everything crashes and burns.
Right.
Right? That's a huge pressure.
Right.
What we probably miss in the moment is that we're the ones that put the guardrails there.
Yeah. Right.
And we don't realize that we can move the guardrails.
Right. And don't let other people put those guardrails in place for you.
Yeah, if somebody else has put it in there.
Somebody, then recognize if you're not comfortable with it, you need to change it.
Right.
And
I mean, there are going to be some that you have to, I mean, when if you're ordering parts from a certain distributor, they're going to have their guardrails of when
Right.
they show up. They're not going to
Right.
deliver at 3 a.m. so you can have it on the truck by 6
Right.
to go to the job. Right.
Right.
So, there's some things like that you can't control.
Right.
But
And there's a time and a place to deal with that problem too, right?
Right.
Like if it happens to be that's the case, then maybe you have to send a guy out first thing in the morning, go pick up the part,
Right.
and it is what it is.
the guardrail might also be that you made a promise to the customer
Yeah.
that
Shouldn't have.
You probably should have given a longer timeline.
Yeah.
And so you're dealing with your guardrail.
Right.
And so you can move that to fit other people's.
Right.
Right. And so that's.
Yeah. And I know I just had this problem the other day. I had a customer that had a problem and I didn't promise them anything. I checked on things first to see if I could make them happy for what they wanted. And I said, I'm not sure. Let me check.
Right.
And then was able to follow through with making it happen. But I would say that even though I was not excited about the idea that I was going to tell them that might not be able to happen, it just was what it was. We had already
Right.
responded to one fire that they had that we had to go put out. And this was fire number 2 that just happened to be within 24 hours.
Right.
So it was like, okay, so like that's a major shift for somebody who doesn't have the bandwidth that's already pre-planned for some business for some jobs to get done.
Right.
And now you're pulling somebody off and something else is not getting done.
Right. Right. And I think there's maybe even some tension with some of the values we place.
Yeah.
And not
I completely agree with that. I'm glad you went there.
not knocking our value.
No.
Like, one of the businesses I've set up, I've got to onboard a client. There's a certain time frame that I have to set an expectation of. This is what onboarding looks like.
Right.
I could say every client gets onboarded in less than 48 hours. Or I could say every client gets onboarded in a week or 2 weeks, right?
Right.
If I set up the 48 hour or a 24 hour, right?
Right.
Then I have to do that.
Right.
And that's okay for the first handful of clients.
Right. That's true.
Right? But then
Can you keep up with it?
you either have to change your expectation, your value of saying, okay, well, we're going to extend this to a week because we just don't have the bandwidth.
Right.
Right. Or you have to hire somebody.
Yeah.
You have to bring team in, and and that brings in a whole nother set of
Right.
of things. And so we have to have the space. I mean, how many times on a podcast do we talk about pulling out,
Yep.
getting the opportunity to look at the high level view
Right.
and say, what is really forcing me down this road that's causing me this tension?
Right.
And how do I change my values?
Right.
If not, what else do I have to change?
Right. Well, and I think that, you went from it from a different angle, which is, this is great. I love it.
Yeah.
I was thinking more of the back end. Like, I think that so many business owners think, well, I need to make $1 million. Like I personally need to make $1 million.
Okay,
So
yeah.
I need the business to be able to produce to get me to that point. Right. Well, sometimes
Right.
what I've realized quickly is like, well, that might not be a good idea. Like for the company to produce that amount of money, and you might have to work 150 hours a week.
Right.
And that's not healthy for your lifestyle.
Right.
Well, what do you value? Do you want the money or do you want the time? Like, and so there's a correlation there. Something's
Right.
got to give,
Right.
right?
Right.
And so I just think, I had another business owner. I started in a group, and and he's more successful, and he said, just remember, you don't have to buy the jet, you don't have to buy the
Right.
Lamborghini,
Right.
You don't have to buy whatever it is, that thing that you think you really need. You probably don't.
Right.
Like, and
right.
I was like, one of those moments where it's just like, wow.
Right.
Like,
Well, Can I say something else unpopular?
Yeah.
We give younger generations, I say we, culture gives younger generations a harder time because there's a sense of entitlement in our younger generations.
Mm-hmm.
Is this not exactly the same thing
Yeah.
that older generations are falling into as well, going,
Right.
I'm entitled to growth. I'm entitled to, I mean, hitting that exponential growth that makes, a movie or makes the big time podcast, right?
Right.
That's like saying, I'm 13 years old and I'm going to play in the NFL.
Right.
What is the percentage of people hitting the big time like that?
Right.
It's super low.
Right.
1% or less, right?
Yeah,
It's
low.
something like that. I mean, how many youth leagues in the nation and how many pro teams, right?
Right. That's
And
exactly
so
right.
that, do we have that expectation or we sense that entitlement? Like, why is my business not hitting the big leagues?
Yeah.
Because that's not going to happen for everybody.
Right. And it's okay.
And it's okay. Yeah.
Like, that's what I think I've come to terms with. Like, I don't think I need my business to be a national company. I just don't have a desire to be there in that space.
And if it is, here's the other side of the coin from, entitlement is patience.
Yeah.
That if it is going to become a national company,
Yeah.
it doesn't have to happen in year 2 or next month or next
the first 10 years.
That's my goal for, Q3.
Yeah.
Let your business grow organically. I mean, set goals, grow,
Right,
push,
right, for sure.
strive. Absolutely.
We are not saying that you shouldn't strive for
Right.
your best.
But realistic thinking in not comparing ourselves
Right.
to the amazing success stories.
Right.
There's some of them
Because
out there, absolutely,
they
and one of
didn't-
us might be one.
Yeah. And
Who knows?
They didn't do it in Q3
Right.
or the first 2 years. I guarantee you, because they
Right.
would have not learned enough fast enough to be able to be there.
Right. Right.
It just, there's no way.
Yeah. So people, be patient.
Yeah. We hope
We hope you hear our heart. I mean,
Yes, for sure.
We want to grow. We want to succeed. We want to see amazing things happen for our businesses, for our families, for our
Right.
community.
and for the people that we work with side by side, like in the other businesses that we bump into, like we want to
Right.
see the best and we want, if that's what you want, I don't think you should stop striving for it, but just
Right.
keep everything in
But
perspective.
just know there's the trade-offs.
Right.
There are going to be guardrails that you place in your life
Right.
that will force you into patterns that you may or may not want to go.
so that you're
And if
not
that's your pattern, great.
so you're not a
Yeah.
slave to your business if you don't want to be.
Yeah. But by large, whatever that saying is.
Yeah.
By
far
and
and
large, whatever.
By and large, whatever.
Most of the leaders and entrepreneurs that I've been talking to at some level feel enslaved.
Yeah.
And there's always that eye roll moment in a conversation of like, oh, I still have to take care of this week.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to.
Yeah.
I don't, it's not. And so how do we work through that?
Right.
How do we deal with those? And that's a huge part of being a leader.
Yeah. Completely agree.
So
Well, thanks for joining us today. We're going to
Absolutely.
wrap this up, and we hope that you hear, like Jason said, I hope you hear our hearts. I hope that you are growing more and more with this podcast as we put more helpful tips out there, because we want nothing better than to see you grow.
yeah.
And leading is serving. So if you're leading yourself and you're working hard to lead those around you, kudos to you.
That's right. And hop over to leadingisserving.com. Leave us a rating or review. Nominate a leader. Or if you'd like to be on the podcast, nominate
we'd
yourself.
Yeah, for sure. We'd
That's
love
fine
that too.
Or if you're interested in groups, let us, shoot us a message, and we would love to talk to you about what's coming down the road with the Uncommons and the Business Network. So
Sounds great.
we'll talk to you all soon.
Thanks.